Okay, yeah, so it's 3 after. I'll keep admitting people as they arrive, but let me just get started with some introductory remarks. Like I said, my name is Jessica. I am I'm one of the adult services librarians with the Cleveland Heights Library System. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We're really appreciative of you choosing to spend an hour of your evening with us tonight. Before we get started with the program, I wanted to put in a brief plug for our final program, which is going to be happening on Wednesday, May 26th at 7 p.m. That program is the History of Cleveland Heights with Maisie Adams. It is going to be happening, like I said, Wednesday, May 26th at 7 p.m. It will also be happening on Zoom. If you want to register for this program, I'm going to put the information in the chat box in just a moment. You can also get the information by going to the library website, which is heightslibrary.org. I hope everyone can attend this very exciting program. As many of you know, Cleveland Heights is celebrating the centennial of the incorporation of the city. So a lot of these programs are being put on centered around that theme. If you can't attend it, it will be recorded and it will be available on the Cleveland Heights Historical YouTube channel. And I'm going to put the information for the YouTube channel also in the chat in just a minute. With that in mind, please note tonight's lecture is also being recorded. So we ask you that you keep your microphones and your video muted while the presentation is going on. If you have any questions during the presentation, there will be time for a Q&A at the end. So please send your questions to us through the chat box, and I will direct those to our presenter at the end of the lecture. Okay, so now that is taken care of, let me introduce our speaker tonight, Jamie Miles. Jamie Miles is on staff as Preservation Programs Associate at the Cleveland Restoration Society, where she has worked since 2019. She works with both the Heritage Home Program, helping homeowners navigate the program's many available services, and with Preservation Services, assisting CRS's programming and services offered to community partners. Jamie is a graduate of Case Western Reserve University's Art History BA program and is currently working on her MA in Historic Preservation at Ursuline College. She previously worked as an intern for the City of Cleveland Heights Department of Planning and Development. So she is uniquely situated to help us understand the history of our homes in Cleveland Heights. All right, welcome, Jamie. Thank you for being here with us tonight.
Thank you so much for introducing me and for having me. So I'm going to be talking a little bit this evening just about some resources available to you if you're thinking about doing some diving into the history of your house in Cleveland Heights. I'll talk about, what a good starting point is, kind of give you some ideas about how to organize your research, and some really awesome, unique things that are available to you as people who live in Cleveland Heights. So first, I'm going to get started. I'll introduce a little bit just about the Cleveland Restoration Society, where I'm from. So our organization was founded in 1972. We are headquartered in Cleveland's Midtown neighborhood in the historic Sarah Benedict House. We have a $1 million operating budget with 34 trustees and 14 awesome staff members, and we have over 1,000 members. And we're the largest non-governmental historic preservation organization in Ohio. So we do a lot of work throughout greater Cleveland area. Our mission statement, we use the powerful tool of historic preservation to revitalize our diverse communities, strengthen the regional economy, and enhance the quality of life in Northeastern Ohio. And just some ways that we kind of try to accomplish that mission, these are some of our main program areas: advocacy, community engagement, preservation services, sacred landmarks assistance, historic real estate, the small deals program, and the Heritage Home Program, which you may be familiar with. And so I'm just going to start off talking a little bit about why, maybe you're wondering, why should I dive in and research the history of my house? Like, what is this? How is this valuable for me? So first of all, it can help with decision making if you're thinking about rehabbing or remodeling your house. As the owner of a historic home, you may be, you definitely have to undertake some maintenance or some rehab projects every now and then. And being aware of the history of your house or, its historic architecture can help you, be familiar with if you want to, for example, whether, you might want to know whether the windows on your house are original or not, or that way in the future, if you're thinking about repairing or replacing those windows, you're aware if you should, what kind of style they should be and things like that. Another reason you will foster appreciation of your environment and surroundings, and also feel more connected to your neighborhood and community if you are kind of aware of the history of your house and the history of the other houses in your neighborhood. You might learn some great stories about your house and the people who used to live there, so it can make for great storytelling. It'll also help you satisfy curiosity. Maybe you've lived in your house for many years and you're not really sure, the history of this place that you've spent so much time in, so it can help satisfy that. And also, it's kind of fun. You do get to feel like a bit of a detective putting all the pieces together. And so, what sort of information might you find if you kind of are interested in looking at the history of your house? Well, you can find out things like when your house was built, who the original owner may have been, who's lived in your, find out if your property was farmland at one point, and whose farm was it, where this land that my house is on, whose land did this used to be? Was there another building there before your house was built? Maybe there was a larger estate or a commercial building that was demolished before your house was built. Was there a builder or architect of your house? Some houses have architects that design them, not all of them do, but you may learn who the builder or architect was. You may learn if your house was part of a larger development project. Oftentimes, houses are part of subdivisions, and there was a large batch of houses built all at once. Maybe your house was just built, one and done. Maybe it was a farmhouse. That's something you can learn about. You might learn what architectural style your house is and why it's that architectural style. If the architect that designed your house liked to work in a specific style, or maybe the builder, that did your house had a specific style they like to work in, or the developer that, commissioned the house to be built wanted the house in a specific style for some reason. That's something you might learn about as well. What characteristics, as I mentioned before, what characteristics of your house are original now, what was added later. For example, a lot of houses had porches that were added later, there were additions, things covered up, things changed, something you might find out. And also, what did your neighborhood look like in the past? How has it changed over time? You might learn, that there used to be a carriage house or a barn in the rear of your property, so that was demolished in the past, or that there was different houses, across the street, or maybe there are some empty lots in your street that may or may not have had houses on them in the past. You might learn about that as well. So in getting started, there are definitely some things you're going to want to have on hand that will be really useful for doing some house research. First of all, most importantly, you're going to want to have your property's address and the permanent parcel number. And I'll get into that a little bit more. If you aren't really sure what your property's permanent parcel number is, you can look on your tax documents or at the Cuyahoga County GIS, which I'll mention a little bit more in a minute. Excuse me. You're also going to want to have a library card. I recommend either actually having both Cleveland Public Library and Cuyahoga County Public Library cards, because each library system has different resources available online through their website. So I recommend having both cards. And also, you're going to want to keep in mind that you should be organizing information as you gather it. So I recommend either keeping a folder, either a hard copy or a digital one, depending what you're most comfortable with and putting everything there. You're going to want to be taking screenshots or printing things, and also don't assume that you will remember something. So making sure you're keeping track of things as you gather them. And also just some reminders, you're going to want to remember that there's no single correct research path. So I'm going to kind of give you some good starting places, and then also a bunch of other resources that you can look into, but you don't have to start in a specific place. You might find more things useful than others for your specific situation. And so, just what you're going to want to go with whatever is right for your specific research project. And research is about using all the resources available to you to assemble bits of information into a complete story, kind of like a puzzle. So that's just something that, just to kind of give you the right mindset going in. So I mentioned before, if you don't know already your property's permanent parcel number, you can find that through Cuyahoga County's GIS, and that's called My Place. The GIS stands for Geographic Information System. And so all the information in My Place is public record. So as I mentioned, you can find the permanent parcel number, the current ownership information of any property, things like the parcel lines, tax information, and many more things as well. Properties are searchable by address, owner, or PPN, or you can just kind of like scroll through the map. And then other counties have their own versions of this as well. So if you're interested in a property in another county, most of them also have their own versions or a GIS as well. So this is what My Place looks like, just kind of a screenshot. As you can see in the top bar there, you can search through the entire county, or you can narrow it down to a specific city. You can search by owner, parcel, or address. And then as you can see in the bottom right corner, there's a button that says go to full map. If you really wanted to dig into some specific details, like they have satellite views from different seasons of different years, you can go to the full map and it'll give you all that detailed information. But if you're just looking kind of for like the ownership or the permanent parcel number, you can just kind of stick with the basic version here that you'll find right when you get to the website. And so here's an example using the Cleveland Restoration Society office. If you search the address, it'll take you to the building, and that number on top there is the permanent parcel number. And the reason that number is going to come in handy, I'll get to in a minute, but it's going to be really useful for you, especially if you're interested in going and looking for information at the Cuyahoga County Archives, which are usually a really great source of information on your house. As I mentioned, other counties also have their own version of like a My Place or a GIS. And so once you have that permanent parcel number, you might be interested in going and doing a deed search and creating a chain of ownership for your property. So you can trace ownership of your property backwards through time, starting with yourself or the current property owner. And if you go far enough, if you take the time to go through this whole deed search, it can help you find the original owner of your house or its build date. And also just the people who lived in it or owned it, in the past and may have lived in it for many years. The way that you can do this is through the Cuyahoga County Fiscal Officer's website. And, other counties may have other ways of finding that information, but it's important to note that doing a deed search and creating a chain of ownership does take a lot of time and patience. So it can be a really good, rich source of information, but it does take some time to do. So be patient if you are interested in undertaking this process. So this is just kind of what the fiscal officer's website looks like, and you're going to want to use the general deed search that they have there under the recorded documents tab as well. And so if you were going to go ahead and search for a deed, you would want to have, for example, a parameter of years that you're looking for. And I just kind of have some tips here. If you, you might have to search multiple times with different terms or parameters. So in this example here, I know that I'm looking for the Cleveland Restoration Society headquarters to see when it was deeded from its previous owner. I had the general idea that it may have happened sometime between 1970 and 2000, so I used those as my different my years there. And so I entered that the recording happened sometime between January 1st, 1970 and January 1st, 2000, and I used the ownership name, the company Cleveland Restoration. So I found then in the results that there was a deed in the year 1997 from Maxine Levin, who I knew was one of the founders of the Cleveland Restoration Society, deeded the house there, and you can see in the legal description it says on Prospect Avenue, which is what I was looking for. And so, I looked at that and saw that looked like it may have been the deed that I was interested in. So I then clicked on the number there all the way to the left, and I was able to actually see the image of the deed with all of that detailed information in it. You can see the grantor and the grantee. And then if I wanted to go back and see, oh, well, where did Maxine Levin get this property from? I would go back to my search. I would search maybe from 1950 to 1997 or 1970 to 1997 and see then where Maxine Levin got the Prospect Avenue property. And you can continue doing that as you go back in time until to see who may have originally owned the property. And so, as you can see, this is kind of a complicated process. So if you're stuck on doing a deed search, don't despair. There are definitely other ways of finding information on property ownership and build date. That's just one of the more sort of straightforward scientific ways, I suppose. Another really great source of this kind of information is going to be the Cuyahoga County Archives. They are located in the county building at Perkins and East 40th in Midtown. They moved there in, I think, a few years ago now from their old building on Franklin Boulevard in Ohio City. And the new facility is really, really awesome. They have a lot of space. It's really pleasant to go visit there. They had been closed most of the year because of the pandemic, but they're now open to the public again. So you can go and visit them at their new facility. And also, if you aren't really so comfortable going to visit, the staff are also really responsive to emails and inquiries. And they can help you look for information, and they can scan documents for you and send them back to you over email. So if you're looking for, or if you just don't have the time to go out to the actual building, you can input a research request on the website and they can get back to you with stuff. But that is another reason that it's important to know the PPN for your property, because giving them that number in your research request is going to be really helpful for them to help find you information. So you're going to want to have that on hand if you also end up going there in person. And some of the records available at the Cuyahoga County Archives include tax appraisal building cards, which sometimes include photographs from the 1940s to 60s. They have plat maps from the mid-1800s all the way to the 1940s, probably that span like every 10 years is a different plat map. And then they also have tax duplicate documents, which are really extensive, and those will help pin down the exact year that your house was built. So here I have an example of some building cards, what they look like. And as you can see, they give all sorts of information. They are, when a tax assessor would go to a property, they would record this information to try to, record how much a property was worth. So in this example, you can see that the building owner was recorded, the date that that person purchased the property is recorded, and there is also a photograph of the property. Many building cards do have photos from this time period, but not all of them because some of them have gone missing through the years. But it can be a really great way to get an old photo of your house if you are missing one and you're interested in looking at it. I also mentioned that they have the plat maps, the tax maps available. Excuse me. And this is another way that you can see transfer of ownership for different properties. You can see what the surrounding parcels looked like, who lived there, and what the neighborhood looked like. And sort of the way that you can see transfer of ownership is that they would use a map over a certain span of years, and as the ownership transferred, they would cross out the old owner and write the new one as the ownership transferred. So as you can see in my example here, I have this property was owned by a Henry Bulkley purchased in 1921. As you can see, the property was transferred above to a Lydia Bulkley in 45. Henry was crossed out, and then later in 45, Lydia was crossed out, and a John Schneider purchased it in October of 45. So it's kind of a way you can see how the property moved from owner to owner over that period of time. Another thing they have at the archives are the tax duplicates. They are record of the real estate assessment on which property taxes are based. And so if you're going through tax duplicates, you can see if a value of a property jumps during a specific year, you can assume that an improvement was made on it and that there was a building built on that property during that year. And so that is one way that you can accurately pin down a build date for your parcel and see when your house was built potentially. So moving kind of away from the Cuyahoga County Archives, I highly recommend if you've never really looked into the Cuyahoga County Archives, that is a really great starting point for your research. But speaking of maps, however, there are some awesome resources that are available online, especially Cleveland Historic Maps and Cleveland Cartography. They're great digital resources. They're assembled and maintained by Cleveland State University. And there are historic maps and aerial photos of Cuyahoga County from various dates spanning from 1852 all the way to 1979. And they're a really great visual way to track property changes as the maps are layered. So you can kind of click between years and see exactly how on the maps they have over time. It's a really awesome way to see, you know, the big picture of how a city looked over different periods of time. There are also Sanborn fire insurance maps, which often provide a little bit more detailed information than what's on Cleveland Historic Maps because they were made for fire insurance purposes. And those are available online through Cleveland Public Library. That's another really good reason to have a Cleveland Public Library card, is that you can access these maps. So maybe you're interested in finding some information about the builder or the architect of your home. And a really kind of like the best way to look for this kind of information is through building permits. And Cleveland Heights does have a lot of building permits for many of the houses in the city, but they don't have all of them. So if you're interested in finding that information, you can contact the planning department and see if they have that information available for your address. However, even if they don't have that, if your house is part of a known subdivision, you can kind of assume oftentimes the builder may have been the same builder as the rest of the subdivision. So you can kind of conjecture based on that evidence. There are also other ways you can think about finding the builder or the architect, also through different publications like the Ohio Architect and Builder, the Cleveland Leader, Plain Dealer Historical. Often there would be advertisements published, say that a specific builder, was about to complete building up a subdivision and they were trying to sell those homes, they would actually publish the address in the paper with the builder's name or, details about the architect, and maybe your house is one of those that they publish an image of in the paper. So you can kind of see from that. There's also, if you do know about an architect of your house and you're just looking for more information about that architect, there's the Cleveland Architects Database, which is available through the City of Cleveland Planning Department website. And they have information about many different architects that worked in and around Cleveland. And you can see when that architect was active, what other buildings maybe they were responsible for, all that kind of information on there. So a lot of times when people are looking for information about the history of their house, they're really interested in finding blueprints. But blueprints are very rare and difficult to find typically. Usually when people ask about that, I would recommend that they contact any previous owners that they're aware of their house. Blueprints, can end up in people's hands and they either keep them or they forget to pass them down with the house. You can ask neighbors. Sometimes, neighbors will end up with blueprints of another home on their street. They end up floating around. Sometimes, blueprints end up just like sitting in the attic of the house. It's typically very difficult to find because they often get lost. However, if you are one of those rare situations where you have a kit house, one of the Sears houses, something like that, those published plans are usually available online through the Library of Congress in different forms. So if you are one of those rare situations, you may be able to find the original plans for your house. Another great source for information are the historical societies. The Western Reserve Historical Society and Cleveland History Center have a lot of great information about people, about neighborhoods. They have some digitized materials, not everything digitized, but you can also go visit their library. And their collections are browsable online for what they do have digitized. So you might be able to find some information, especially if you're looking for biographical information about people through their online collections. And then, you can also contact the Cleveland Heights Historical Society and see if they have any information on your neighborhood, or perhaps about an architect or are interested, in your specific street. They might have some information to offer you as well. A lot of times also, you might be wondering what your house used to look like, interested in finding historic photographs. Some resources that can help you do that are the Cleveland Public Library Photograph Collection, which is online, but they also do have some that is not digitized. So you can go check their photograph collection out in person down at the Cleveland Public Library main branch downtown. And, they also have the Cleveland Memory Project through the CSU Library and the Ohio Memory Project through the Ohio History Connection. All of those photograph libraries are really great ways. You can look up, for example, photos of Cleveland Heights in general, or your street name, and you might be able to see, if you have a landmark near your house, you can look at, search for that landmark, search for that street, and you might be able to find your house in the background of a photograph or down a streetscape. And that's a really kind of interesting way to see, your house and maybe what its surroundings looked like as well. And these pictures here are all Cleveland Heights ones that I found through those different sources. I think this bottom one is actually on Cedar, sort of near the Lee intersection. And another really great kind of underrated source is actually social media. through Facebook groups, there is a lot of valuable information. One in particular, which is huge now, is Cleveland Our Architectural Legacy. Other neighborhood or local groups, they're both really good ways to crowdsource information. All kinds of people are on there, people who have been in the city of Cleveland for a long time, people who know a lot about architecture, a lot about history. So if you have, if you're kind of stumped on something, it might be a really great way for you to get some information or get a good lead on something. As I mentioned before, if you're interested in learning some biographical information about the people who either lived in your house or the architect or the builder, some really great ways to do that are through city directories, which are available at the county archives and also at the library. I know Jessica told me that they have city directories at the Cleveland Heights Library. Some of those are digitized as well. You can find the Cleveland City directories and the suburban directories, the crisscross directories, and the Cleveland Blue Book, which has some of the more prominent business people in the city in it. It's a really great way to learn some information about those people. You can also find old newspapers. If you have a Cleveland Public Library card, you can have access to the Plain Dealer Historical. So all of those old issues of the Plain Dealer, you can search a keyword and it'll pop up with issues of the newspaper with that person's name in it. So it's a really good way to find information as well. The Cleveland Public Library also has other genealogy resources you can look at. Ancestry.com is a paid subscription, but many libraries purchase it for the public use. Another really good resource that a lot of people aren't aware of is findagrave.com, which is kind of like Wikipedia in that it's crowdsourced information that people have put together, but it's based on cemeteries. So it's really good if you are interested in learning about someone's family, if who they were buried with. That information is often batched together on Find a Grave. So if you can find one person, you might be able to find their mother or father or siblings or something like that. So it's another really good resource. You can also use Google. A lot of times, you want to be careful and use discretion with to see if you're finding correct information. Definitely have that filter on. But if you use Google Books and you use the Control F command, the find command, you can find maybe people's names in different books, directories, things like that. So it's another just really good way to search for info. Kind of changing gears here. If you are interested in looking at the architecture and style of your house, kind of more than its the history of the people involved in it, a really good resource for this is the Field Guide to American Houses by Virginia Savage McAllister. This is kind of known as the quote unquote Bible of historic preservation, and it includes keys and easy to digest ways to identify your home style based on its characteristics. So if you know that your house is a certain kind of column, or it has a certain kind of window shape, or it has a certain kind of roof shape, you can use the book to kind of say, oh, okay, well, my house has this feature, and this feature. It might be this style. And in turn, that can kind of help you to pin down what year your house was built based on what architectural style it is. Some styles were built commonly within a 10-year span more than others. So it's another really great way to find out, when your house was built, or when your whole neighborhood was built up, things like that. Now for Cleveland Heights specifically, some other books that are really useful are, and you may be familiar with this first one, The Cleveland Heights Making of an Urban Suburb by Marion Morton, is a really awesome book just about the general history of Cleveland Heights. It has a lot of info in there about its development and how, what parts of the city were built up at different times and why. And then another book I found really useful for learning about the architecture of Cleveland Heights is called The Comfortable House, North American Suburban Architecture from 1890 to 1930 by Alan Gowans. A lot of Cleveland Heights is built up during that time period, and a lot of the houses in Cleveland Heights can be defined as quote unquote comfortable houses. You know, those early suburban type houses. So that book is a really, really awesome one to learn about that really common house type in Cleveland Heights. And just, you know, I put this in because a lot of people kind of don't even think about, you know, if you're thinking about learning about your house, take a walk around your neighborhood and just kind of look at your surroundings. You know, it'll give you a lot of clues about how the area was built up, and you can just kind of gather a lot of information by just looking around. So, for example, I have the intersection of Coventry and Euclid Heights Boulevard here. You know, you see a lot of different building types. You see like these more high style houses along Euclid Heights Boulevard to the east there. You see some of like a lot of those 12-unit apartment buildings, and then you see some commercial buildings, you know, right up there along the intersection. And you can even kind of tell like how everything evolved. Like, you know, the high style houses, that architecture came a little before that, those style of apartment buildings. And then some of those, you know, commercial buildings are clearly a little bit newer. So you can kind of even see how the area was developed just by looking at the buildings themselves. And this building is not in Cleveland Heights, but I put this in here because if you're looking at trying to decide, you know, what architectural style your house is, and it's not really fitting under any specific category, it's okay. You don't get obsessed with trying to pin down your house into a specific style if it really isn't fitting into one. You know, some houses are just kind of expressions of builders, you know, quirkiness, and that's going to be part of the story of the special story, the unique story of your house, and that's totally okay. This one here is just totally, it's a house on the west side of Cleveland, and it's just totally stumped me, and it's really kind of awesome. And that's awesome, you know, to have that as part of a neighborhood. So if you do some research on your house, you know, when you're done, keep in mind that you should be sharing your findings. Be sure to share your home story with family, friends, and neighbors. They can inspire to get others interested in the history of their communities as well. And the more people that know about their neighborhood, the more connected they feel and are motivated to make it a better place. So that's why, you know, looking into the history of your house and your neighborhood is really important. And so at the end here, I'll give a little plug to the Heritage Home Program. This is something that you guys have available to you in Cleveland Heights. You may or may not already know about it, but we do are available to homeowners of houses over 50 years old in the Cleveland Heights area. And we offer two kind of different parts of the program. The first is free technical assistance. So that comes as impartial advice with a preservation approach to maintenance, repair, and improvements to houses. We offer free site visits with our construction specialists to help you talk about any issues with your home, help with project prioritization. We offer contractor resources. We keep a small database of local contractors for all kinds of different projects, and just also restoration guidance as well. And then the second part of our program includes low interest loans for financing any and all, well, almost any and all house projects. So that fixed rate financing is as low as a 2% interest rate, and both interior and exterior projects and DIY projects qualify. And because we're preservation based, we do provide construction specifications for exterior projects. So it's a really awesome program. If you're interested, just let me know and I can send you more information. And if you have any questions, I guess now is the time for those.
All right, thank you so much. I do definitely have some questions and comments from the audience. So let me, I was jotting some of them down because I find it hard to go back through the, like scroll all the way back and make sure I got everything. So the first question that I have is from Michael, and he wanted to know if you can search by parcel number, and we were talking about deeds at that time. So I think he's asking, can you search for a deed by a parcel number? Correct me if I'm
I
wrong.
believe you can, yes. I'd have to go look at the website again, but I believe you can.
Okay. Sue had a question and a comment.
Oh, can I add something to that?
Oh,
Sorry.
yes, sure. No. I'm sorry. I don't want to.
Often, actually, I should have noted that parcel numbers can change over time too. Sometimes parcels get combined with each other or split up over the years. So parcel number might be one way to search it, but if it's not really working out for you, you might just search by name because it could have been that the property was split up or added to over time and the parcel number is not the same.
Wow, that's really interesting. I didn't know that. Wow, okay. So Sue had a question and a comment. She asked, do you see a lot of properties being raised within the Cleveland area that are historic? So that was the question part.
It kind of depends what you define as historic. I think there are a lot of properties that are raised that are over 50 years old. A lot of people use that as their definition for historic. There are less properties that get raised that are in historic districts. Some people use that as their definition for what is historic, because there are committees that are usually able to review property demolitions that happen in historic districts. So less so in those areas, but yes, there are definitely a lot of properties that get raised that are over 50 years old in Cleveland.
And the comment that she had was, I was able to find where the second building for our churches, where our church is now located by doing research in Lake County. So that was when you were talking about doing research in the Cuyahoga County archives.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I have a question from Michael. It says, is there any reason not to believe the build date on the real estate listing from when we bought the house? So is that always a reliable source of information?
No, it's not necessarily, because sometimes, so on the county auditor's website, the My Place website, they will have a build date listed. Sometimes if there isn't a build date, that is on other paperwork, whatever the county auditor is using to put that information into the website, if there's not a build date there, they'll just guess. And so, especially this happens a lot for properties that were built before 1900. There isn't, a build date, so they'll just put 1900 because it's an even number. So if your house is old, especially, the build date's probably not accurate on there.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot of a lot of good questions tonight. He also asked, are the Cleveland historic maps online?
Yes.
As you say, like you said, it was digital. So like that's the website you were talking about, the Cleveland Historic Maps website.
Yeah, if you Google Cleveland Historic Maps, you'll probably find it as like either the first or second result. But if you would like a link sent to you directly, you can email me and I can send you the link.
So I also have a question from Cheryl. It says, my UH house is listed as 1939, but my older neighbor told me the houses in the neighborhood weren't completed until 1946 due to World War II. So I don't know.
So it's possible that your house might be one of the older houses in the neighborhood. And then the majority of them weren't finished until 1946. I would look at, does your house look like the rest of the houses in the neighborhood physically? Is it the same style architecture? Um, it's possible that they were built in phases. Like some of them, they were built between 1939 to 1946. Obviously, maybe the houses weren't done in 1 year. I don't know. That might be something, all different things to look into.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sue commented, she said, I find that the dates of building on the tax duplicates is sometimes not correct. My great-grandfather's house was built in the 1870s, but the tax information about the house claims it was built in 1921.
Oh, you might be referring to the My Place date as well. The tax duplicates are the tax records that are written down, recorded in the archives. The tax information on My Place, that's not where they pull that information from. So I think those are two different records that you're thinking about there.
Okay, and then I have a question from Wes that says, I have an old farmhouse which seems to be just off the map. I know it is pre-1900, but can't find a name. Can this research be done online?
I would ask where it's located. Specifically, that's also definitely something you can email to the archives as a request. If you aren't interested in going there in person, you can definitely ask them for help, and they can help you look on maps and stuff without even going there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't know if anyone else wants to send in any other questions. I did put a link in there. I put a link in the chat box to two different things that may be of interest. So we do have city directories at Lee Road. It's the Lee Road branch on the second floor. And I put a link there to the Cleveland Public Library. They're the digital versions of the city directories. I don't know how many people really know that a lot of them have been digitized. You mentioned that in your presentation, but I put the link to them there. And I did also put a link to for a copy of the Zoom link for the next program, for that History of Cleveland Heights program. Okay, let's see. I do have two other questions. This one comes from the Moreno family. It says, I discovered that my street name was changed from looking at an old map. I live on the west side. Also bought an orchard ladder from a neighbor's house who was 100 years old at death. I'm looking into the possibility that this neighborhood was an orchard. Yeah, that's interesting.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot you can find out about names too, based on old street names. Or even oftentimes you'll find that streets are named after whoever's farm it used to be. And you can make really cool connections like that.
Kelly asked, will this presentation material be available to download? So the material, I think she means the slides. The presentation itself, like the video, will go up on the Cleveland Heights Historical YouTube channel in a couple of days. But
if you want a copy of the slides, you can email me and I'd be happy to send them to you.
Okay, yeah, so you can send an email if you'd like to get the slides. Oh, she says thank you.
I also have a copy. If you're interested, I have a PDF document that has links to a bunch of resources that I referenced in the presentation. So if you want that document, just let me know. I can send that to you as well.
Yeah, I'll put, just in case, I'll put at the bottom my email too, which is localhistory@heightslibrary.org. So if anyone has any questions, they can also send a question there if they'd like. Oh, wait, actually, I'm sorry. That didn't go to everybody. Alrighty, I think we're gonna wrap up. So if anyone has any last minute questions, let us know. This was really informative. Lots of folks, Donna said that they had a great experience with the Restoration Society. and lots of thank yous, just saying very helpful and informative information. So.
You're welcome. I'm so happy that you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully this like inspires you to do some research on your house.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Well, super organization. Thanks to both of you. Yeah, lots and lots of thank yous. So people are very grateful for the work the Cleveland Restoration Society does. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming tonight. Let us know if you have any questions.
Yeah, and like I said, feel free to email me. I can send you copies of things if you shoot me an email. Would be happy to.
Oh, Suzanne said I would like a copy of the hints for researching. Yeah, if you send an email to Jamie, then you can get the copy of that. All righty. Okay. Everyone, yeah, I'll I think we're probably all done with our questions. So thank you so much again. All righty.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Have a nice night, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.